Did you know that the second Friday in January is known as Quitter's Day? So many people abandon their goals that particular Friday that it has earned a name. And by the end of January, that number doubles. And I'm not ashamed to say, yeah, that tracks. Guilty as charged. My name is Scott Johnson. I've lived with type 1 diabetes for 45 years. And today on Around the Circle, we're going to learn how we can avoid those common pitfalls and set ourselves up for success with a tried and true system that's been around almost as long as my diabetes. I'm here with Carrie Matuzsan. Carrie's a case manager at Blue Circle Health and is among the best in the world at guiding us towards realistic goal setting using the SMART goals system. Carrie, welcome. Thanks for talking with me today.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Now, before we start talking about goal setting, can you tell us a little bit about your T1D story and your role at Blue Circle Health?
Sure. I'll start with the role first. So I'm the case manager at Blue Circle Health. I'm going to help out with people, anything that's going on that gets in the way of being able to focus fully on diabetes, because there's a lot to life beyond diabetes. And then I've had diabetes myself for 22 years now. I was diagnosed at the super fun age of 12, just a month before my 13th birthday. So it was a lot of emotions going on when it came to diabetes and that diagnosis. So I feel like that just kind of fueled me throughout the diabetes journey and wanting to help others.
Tell me a little bit more about that. How did you initially get involved in diabetes professionally?
Yeah, I kind of started out completely accidentally. When I was first diagnosed, I feel like the emotional part really drove it. I remember being in the hospital at diagnosis, and I had a doctor come in and just immediately sighed and said, "Oh, the waterworks are starting." And you know that saying that like it doesn't matter what you say, it's just how people feel. I feel like unless you're in a traumatic area and then you remember all the words. So it kind of stuck with me throughout the time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was a teenager with my future, but I knew it had to do with making people feel better when they had some sort of medical diagnosis. I didn't want it to be diabetes, but it kind of started that way, and then it just kind of fell into it as I went along.
Well, I think that we are lucky to have you working in diabetes. You're definitely a gift to the field and help a lot of people. Is it challenging for you to work in diabetes and live with diabetes? That's a lot, isn't it? How do you deal with that?
You would think it would be to do 24/7 managing diabetes and talking to other people about it. It has just made it a little bit easier because I don't have to hide it at any point. Like whatever's happening, other people know that that's fine and it's been normalized in my workplace. And then just talking with people is not so much that I'm giving them knowledge, it's just more just bouncing back and forth in order to make sure that everybody is getting the care and support that they need. So it's actually kind of a breath of fresh air to go to work.
I love that. Oh, that's great. You mentioned part of your role at Blue Circle Health is helping people with some of the things that sometimes get in the way of thinking about diabetes. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What are some examples of things that get in people's way?
Lots of things. I feel like kind of if you put it down into one word, it's going to be finances. But for a lot of people, diabetes is just really expensive. We just know across the board, everything is very expensive, and it really shouldn't be. It's kind of hard to understand all the things that should make the price go down. So a lot of my role has been gathering coupons and understanding insurance and understanding the programs that are available that a lot of people aren't told about to make sure that diabetes is more affordable for not even just insulin, but all the supplies that they're using. And then beyond that, we're looking at how to make sure that food prices are affordable and making sure that people are getting the food that they need to support their bodies through diabetes, that they're covered with housing, that they have a job, and that anything else that's going on, whether that's legal or just getting around with transportation and healthcare, everything that they need just to be able to support life so that they have a bit of brain space to focus on diabetes.
Oh, thank you for doing that. I know it's we can never not think about our diabetes, but I can also relate to sometimes when I've got bigger problems that I'm dealing with, it kind of falls to the back burner sometimes. So thank you for all your work in helping people stay safe as they navigate some of those hard times. Let's dig into goal setting here, right? Now, is it just me or is sticking with our goals really hard?
Oh, definitely not just you. I think it is for everybody. Probably because it's not a topic that we've ever learned in school. We're always just told to do better, and we're not told how to do better.
Yeah, that makes sense. What makes this such a hard thing for us in is it how we're setting the goals? Are we unrealistic? What are we what are we doing wrong and why are so many of us falling into the same pitfalls year after year?
Yeah, I think I really think it's because we don't know how to do it, and we're always focused on the outcome and not so much the process of it. Like we want to win, we want to get to our goal, we want to just do the thing that we want to do, and the process of it is the part that is not as much fun to think about or even to plan out. So if we don't have practice in doing the different steps to get to that outcome that we want, that big leap from where we are now to where we want to be is much easier to fall flat than it is to do the tiny leaps that it takes to get there.
Yeah, and it can be, I think, tricky to sort of take a step back and just acknowledge that things are not going the way we intended and to kind of reevaluate and readjust. But we'll dig into that a little bit more in a moment. What about type 1 diabetes? Type 1 diabetes to me often feels like a perfect trap when it comes to setting unrealistic goals.
Oh, exactly. When you want that outcome, and with diabetes, oftentimes that outcome comes maybe it's just at the doctor's appointment. So maybe you're looking at a 6 month or a year time frame, and we're told do better, get your blood sugars lower, eat better, get an A1C below 7. All of those are the outcomes, and if we're missing the education and the steps it takes to get to those outcomes, it's a lot easier to fall flat with that and not make the goal or feel discouraged along the way looking at how big that time frame is, uh, especially with diabetes. Like we're thinking about that 24/7, so we have all of this data. It's hard to see that outcome even if we're on the way to getting there.
Well, and we're also given many, many opportunities every single day to really judge ourselves. And oftentimes we judge ourselves harshly, right? If I wake up and I eat breakfast and I take my insulin, I'm critical of myself. I'm thinking, man, I messed that up. What can we do about some of this? Is there a better way to think about what we're shooting for in our goals?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think with diabetes specifically, I always think of my history with Dexcom. It was so easy before Dexcom to check your finger, and if it was a good number, you're like, I've had a good day. I got my 105, and you don't have to think about the entire day because the numbers aren't there. As soon as you get to the Dexcom, one, you feel safer with knowing the number, but two, you see all of the numbers when you didn't before. So that's overwhelming, and it's very easy to see the bad in what's happening. But when Dexcom came out with showing you what was your best day, if you're like, hey, January 15th was your best day, when you have no idea what happened on January 15th, but you know that you're like, hey, this was the good day, and it's kind of putting that ahead of all of the bad when your brain really wants to just think of the not so good on how it gets to your outcome. So highlighting for yourself what those goods were, maybe writing down those wins along the way can help when your brain only wants to focus on the bad.
Yeah, that's very helpful. All right, let's take a quick break and then we're going to dive into some smart goal setting. We'll be back in a second. One of our favorite things is sharing stories from people who've participated in the program. And I have one here from Madison in Ohio.
Hi, my name is Madison, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes since December of 2024. The biggest challenges I face living with type 1 diabetes is the lack of education given to adult diagnosed type 1s and the emotional impact. Having a life-changing diagnosis thrown at you suddenly is difficult enough without the added pressure of having to educate yourself. I went from being terrified of needles to having to inject insulin 4+ times a day overnight. I joined Blue Circle Health because I felt that my endocrinologist did not have the time to answer all the questions I had, and I wanted to talk to someone who specialized in the mental aspect of a type 1 diagnosis. Most of the education I had access to was geared toward type 2s and children and caregivers, and I did not want to overwhelm myself even more with misinformation online. I also felt that the 3 months between endocrinologist appointments was hard when trying to nail down and understand my insulin and trends. What drew me in the most to Blue Circle Health was the fact that all aspects were looked at when it comes to type 1: mental, physical, and social. Without Blue Circle Health, I wouldn't have made the progress I have. Every person I interacted with helped me grow and learn how to adapt to my new normal. I was able to ask the questions as they arose instead of waiting for my next endocrinologist appointment. I was able to speak with Catherine and get over some of the fears and mental hurdles that were holding me back from living a normal life. Julian was fantastic at making me feel less alone as a type 1 and helped me make steps towards getting a pump. Rita gave me the education I'd been looking for. The best part is how individualized the program is. Having one-on-one sessions made me feel a little less afraid to ask the questions I had and allowed me to get the personalized help I needed.
Madison, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And, I'd like to give a quick shout out to one of the many amazing organizations helping people with T1D. And this is not an ad, there's no sponsorship. In fact, they don't even know I'm doing this. I'm just showing some love. And this episode, I want to spotlight a great resource for our realistic goal setting, and it's the Time and Range Coalition. The Time and Range Coalition is a program from Diatribe that focuses on how you can use time and range in your diabetes management. There's a bunch of information there and guides for those of you who maybe are just getting started with time and range, all the way to those who might be using time and range every day. There's also a rich repository of research documents, as well as a toolkit for healthcare professionals. You can learn more at timeinrange.org. All right, welcome back. So, Carrie, we know some of the common pitfalls. We know that we're not alone in this. We know that diabetes is a perfect trap. Talk to me about what we can do about this. How can we approach our goals in a different and dare I say, a smarter way?
Yes, definitely a smart way. So just being cheeky, but smart is a structure that we can use, that one of those things that we're never taught, but it sounds like something that is very easy to break down to give people a structure and make goal setting a bit easier. So SMART is an acronym that can, as we break it down, I think it's a great structure in order to help people to break up their big goals, so it's not such a big leap to whatever A1C or whatever distance you want to run, whatever goal it is that you're setting, breaking down that big leap into smaller ones so you can make it easier and see the progress along the way.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go through that. Like, we've got time. Teach
Mhm.
us how we can leverage SMART goals and be better about using them to hopefully achieve some of the goals that we're working on.
Okay. Yeah, I can talk about what SMART stands for, and then if you're open to it, maybe we can think of what kind of goal you might have, or even if you make one up, that we could smartify, so that it's something that you can get an idea at the end of the podcast on what you want to do in order to make sure that you can get started on the goal without feeling like it could easily become a failure. So SMART, we'll look at the S first. S stands for specific. That means that we're breaking down what we want to be able to focus on, make it something that's concrete. It's very easy to set a goal of I want to be healthier, but if you have no idea what healthier means, you're not going to know when you get there. So specific is going to help out with that. As is the M. M stands for measurable. That means that we have a way to measure how successful we are with this goal. Again, we don't know what healthier means, so we can break it down into something very specific and measurable. By measurable, that means that we're going to be able to say yes or no, I achieved this goal at the end of the time. Next is A. You can have it stand for attainable, achievable, whatever kind of A word that you want. That means that something that you can do. That's really important. When I talk with people, they'll tell me what their goal is. We'll start to smartify it. And then I say at the end, is this something that you think you can actually achieve? If it's not, it's not really worth it because they're not there to make me happy or anybody else happy. But if you can't do the goal, it's not going to be successful, and there's no point even trying with it. Uh, so R is a super easy one. It's relevant. It means that the goal is something that is relevant to the bigger goal that you're looking for. So that one can also help out to weed out some of those goals that you might be thinking about if it's not relevant to that outcome goal.
Can
And
we
last
can we
is
pause there for just a second? I want to dig in on the relevant topic for a minute. So let's say um, if I'm working on improving my time in range or lowering my blood sugar averages or something along those lines, if I pick a goal that is, uh, I want to keep my house clean, right? Like it feels too disconnected.
Mhm.
It doesn't apply to really that bigger picture. Is that kind of where that relevancy comes in?
Yes, exactly. If it's along the path, if it doesn't feel along the path, maybe keeping your house clean is important to you. Might be for a different outcome goal. We don't want you to focus on this one goal and then at the end of it be like, great, I achieved this goal and I measured it and I did it. But then we look at the outcome goal of time and range and you're like, I didn't get anywhere with time and range. And you didn't get anywhere with time and range because the goal that you were going for was with a different outcome.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the way you said it. It's along the path, right? Or not along the path. And
Mhm.
um it's that helps me kind of make some more sense of that in my mind. Okay, great. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That was the R for relevant. What's the T?
You were relevant right there. It's totally fine. So T stands for time bound. It means that you're setting a goal that you're going to check in on. If we think about some of these goals, like say you want to change your time and range, great. What is that time frame that you're looking at? And time and range is a little bit easier since it's already creating a time bound version itself. But if you're looking at a bigger one of just I want to reduce my A1C, I want to be healthier, like what is the time frame that you're going to check in on, as opposed to being just a goal that's open ended and it might kind of drift away from your awareness and you forget about it. So that when you do remember it, you're like, yeah, I didn't get anywhere with this goal. I'm a failure. But instead, the time bound is going to give you a time frame that you're going to actually pay attention to it. And at the end, check in and see, did I do it? Am I ready for a new goal? Or do I need to keep going on with this goal?
Yeah, that's great. So let's go through a few examples. And I have a couple of examples we can work through, but
Oh,
before we
perfect.
go there, one of our colleagues, Sherry, we worked with her on some SMART goals earlier in the year, and she actually recently just achieved her goal. So can we talk through what her process was and her journey, and then we'll work through a couple of examples from me too.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I'm so proud of Sherry, and she was open enough to share her goal with us. Last January actually was when she started it, and she wanted to set a goal for Thanksgiving for a turkey trot, which is amazing, and I think it's actually a pretty common goal for people, especially doing that turkey trot. The thing with it is it was a huge time frame. She started in January for November. And I think a lot of people do that, especially with the end of the year coming up and thinking about New Year's resolutions. This is a perfect time to talk about it because people are looking at giant time frames like that. And it's very easy to go to the gym in early January and be like, I'm going to run my 10 miles in November. This will be easy. And just start running. And they get tired, they get hurt, they get discouraged along the way. So with Sherry, and she was open enough to do this with us, is she set a SMART goal for the month of January. And I believe she said it at the end of like, this is really tiny of a goal, like looking at what she set, which was alternating walking and running for a mile, I believe was her January goal. And it was just such a small chunk compared to if she was only focusing on the outcome goal of 10 miles. Walking and running 1 mile seems so far from that. But we pushed through it and focused on that. And she felt that she could do this little chunk. And we really zeroed in on this was the thing to achieve and measure at the end of January on if she did it. And she did it, because of course she did. She was able to achieve this goal she set in the time frame of a month. And that came up perfectly to a time to reevaluate the goal. So we made it a little bit bigger, and looked at a longer time frame. We were very specific on which days she was working out on so that she could stick to that a little bit easier, rather than just be like, I'm going to go run this month. So she picked which days she was going to go to the gym. She also had a backup plan. I think being in the New York area, snow was coming around. So she had a backup plan for when weather was not very nice to her and it was going to throw off her plan. So we dug into that, because when things don't go well in the plan, that can throw you off. So we came up with contingency plans for it, and we followed her all the way. And then she went through these small goals along the way to continue to build on it. And by the time November came around, Thanksgiving came around, she successfully ran her turkey trot with the 10 miles, and we all celebrated as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very happy and proud of Sherry, and again, as you mentioned, Carrie, grateful that she allowed us to kind of shine a light on her goal setting example, so that we could help teach that in one of actually several of the webinars that we did. So let's go through an example of that I've got that we can demonstrate the SMART process. So I'm going to say kind of a big sort of ambiguous goal, and you're going to help me smartify it to make it a little more systematic and feel more achievable. So I'm not getting the sleep that I need, and it's affecting my blood sugars and productivity and everything. So I want to get 8 hours of sleep on a more regular basis, but I don't really know what that means. So let's start with that as the big goal and work through the SMART system together.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great bigger goal to have, and it sounds very relevant to pretty much every adult around. And I love that even how you talked about it, you said why it was important. There's a lot of times where we pick something like, I want to get more sleep, and that's the goal, but there's not that why behind it. So there's not really that drive to get it done. So when it gets hard, it's easier to drop it. But you have that why of it helps your blood sugar and all of the other things that go into sleep that you had just said. Those are really important, that when you do hit a hard spot, it's not if, it's going to be when. When you hit that hard spot, knowing why you're going for this goal can make it a lot easier to continue on forward.
So is that kind of the first step, is to identify my why? Like, why do I feel this is important? And you also have a system for finding your why, right? Tell us a little more about that.
I do. It doesn't fit into the SMART acronym, but the why is definitely a great starting point in figuring out why you're doing something. And there is a bigger idea of just finding your why in just life in general. But I thought that was a bit too abstract when I learned about it. So I kind of brought it down to a level that I would understand. And I created in my mind what I call the toddler approach, which is if you imagine an itty bitty little toddler who is in their why phase and just asking you why all the time. That it doesn't matter what answer you give, they're going to say why after it. So just imagine a little toddler. So I'm going to do it to you. So you want to get some sleep. Why?
Because I hear that that's what I need to do.
Why?
Because I'm feeling tired during my workday. I'm snacking too much, and I think that this is one thing I can do.
Oh, you know what I'm going to say next. So this would go on until
Yeah.
you know when the whys are going to stop. So we can end it. I'll just ask you one more why. But why?
Well, I think that it's negatively affecting my blood sugar management and how I feel during the day. So I find myself snacking a lot more. I'm craving more carbohydrates than I usually would, and I'm not feeling as healthy as I usually would. So, and I want to feel better.
I could ask you why, but this is your personal toddler, so you can stop them whenever you need to. But that is so much different of a statement than I want to get better sleep, as it sounded so disconnected when you said I want to get better sleep, as opposed to what you connected to what really truly affected you in your daily life and I know your values. So that affecting your work, affecting your blood sugar, that those are very important to you. So when you can connect a goal to your values, oftentimes it's by following the toddler approach of the whys, then that can help you to come up with a reason, and that becomes the North Star for your goal. That when you get lost in it, you can say, oh, I am doing this because I want my blood sugars to be better, because I want to do my best at work. I want to feel the best that I can.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So
that's
we
a good
found our
start.
North Star. We
Mhm.
know kind of why this is important. We've used the toddler approach to ask why, to peel away some of the sort of fluffy first layer answers to really get to the core of why this is important to us. What comes next?
Okay, then we can jump into the smart part. So you know that you want to get better sleep, and you know why. So then we're looking at possibly a huge gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that a lot of people stop there because it seems too big. So that's where we break it down and take a look at let's just start with achievable. So what feels achievable for you now? Looking at where you're starting from, what small step do you want to take forward?
Um, One small step that I want to take forward is not using my smartphone as I'm laying in bed winding down my day. I think that that is an easy action that I can do that will pay big dividends in this effort.
Okay, that's perfect. That sounds very relevant because we know all the research that goes into how much the smartphone can affect our sleep hygiene. So you've already hit the R. You've hit uh, the specific already, and that is very specific to your goal, and that you're focusing just on your smartphone usage. Next, we're going to look at measurable. So if you think about where you are right now, and looking at what those steps are, what is a way that you think you could measure if you're moving forward?
Well, I'm worried that it will be too hard for me to just go cold turkey. So
Mhm.
what if I set myself a pathway goal of um, not using my smartphone 4 out of 7 nights of the week. If I can resist the temptations of my smartphone as I'm falling asleep 4 out of 7 nights of the week, I feel like that will be I'll feel like I'm making progress there.
Okay, perfect. And honestly, you could have said anything in there because the next part that comes up is the achievable. It doesn't matter what you just said because I would ask you, does that feel achievable for you right now?
It does feel achievable. It feels a little bit scary also. Like I'm used to unwinding with my smartphone at the end of the day and watching TikToks and Instagram or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and so it feels a little bit scary, but it does feel achievable. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good thing to think about on, if sure, it can feel scary. That's fine. It depends on what you're going to do with that scary feeling. If it's scary to a point that you don't want to do it, it's very easy to set the goal and then fail at it and stop. But you thought about if it's achievable. Even if you said it didn't feel achievable, then we can make the goal smaller. If 4 nights seemed way too scary and that you're like, I'm gonna give up on this because it's too hard, can we bring it down to 3 nights, to 2 nights, to 1 night, to just half an hour less? It doesn't matter how small it is as long as it's moving you forward and it's something that you believe you can achieve. And there's no one to judge you for that. It doesn't matter as long as you're moving forward. And that I think is the hardest part for people to get through. There's such a feeling of external judgment on anything that we do, but really there's no one watching you in this. So whatever you feel like you can do, that's going to be the goal. And then
Yeah, that feels better. I feel better about that. Thank you for saying that.
no problem. I didn't make you say how much you're already on your smartphone, but that's something you should think about and figuring out what the goals are or how small the goal should be. And the last one's going to be time bound. So if your goal is to completely eliminate the phone and you're looking at just reducing it by 4 days, you want to see how long or think of a time for how long those 4 days should go before, because if you go a year with 4 days, you're still going to feel like a failure because you're not all the way done. So what kind of time frame do you think that you would remember it and that you'd want to reevaluate?
Yeah, I think I want to start this. Um, as we record this, today is a Thursday, and
Okay.
I need some time for my brain to kind of get ready to change. So I want
That's
to want to start on Monday of the coming week, and I want to go for 3 weeks, just trying it to see how it goes, and then take a step back and reevaluate.
okay. That's perfect. And you were very honest with yourself. You easily could have told me that you were going to start today, and I wouldn't know the difference. But you were honest with yourself in choosing a start date of Monday. So that's even more specific. You have it very measurable of the 4 days less the week. At the end of the week, you can say yes or no, I did this. And you can measure that 3 times across the 3 week period. And then it's 3 weeks from now. Congratulations. You did it, no matter what happened. And then you can take a look at what actually happened. If you achieved it, fantastic. Do you want to increase it? Was it too hard? Do you want to decrease it? Or was it perfect, but I think I need more time? You can extend that time frame and just repeat the goal, as it's still continuing to move you forward.
If I've identified some barriers that are getting in the way of me
Mhm.
meeting the goals, it's not about beating myself up for kind of succumbing to these barriers. It happens to everybody, right? It's more about
Exactly.
what can I learn from dealing with those barriers that I can then adjust and incorporate into my SMART goal setting to move forward, right?
Mhm. Yeah, if you're the barrier is something that happens around you, to you. Rarely is it inside out. Like, there shouldn't be shame that it's not that you as a person cannot do the goal. If you physically can't do the goal, we got to adjust the goal. There's nothing that's about anybody that's stopping them from doing the goal. So being really honest on what those barriers are, so there's often a way around them, and that can be built into the goal. If you know, if your kids are calling you at 3 in the morning,
Mhm.
6 days a week, that's not your
Yeah.
fault that the goal is not working, but that can be built into the next goal as something that is taking the onus off of you and allowing for that to not be part of that measurable part of the goal.
So, Carrie, we've covered a lot today, and I know it's really challenging to teach the whole SMART goals system in such a short podcast episode. But if you had to pick a few practical takeaways from our conversation today, what would those be?
I think that it is a very scientific approach where there's not as much judgment to it. So, one, picking a why is going to help to figure out why you're doing a goal and why it's important to you. Going through the SMART, even if it's out of order, then the fancy word of SMART, like we just did, we can bounce around and figure it out as we go. It doesn't have to go SMART. But going through those and then reevaluating with no judgment, really being kind to yourself, even if it means removing yourself, pretend it's somebody else's goal. How would you speak to a friend if they were having a goal like this? So one of the biggest downfalls is yourself. Just being mean to yourself, being your own bully, is often the downfall for a lot of these goals. So removing the judgment and figuring out how practically you can move forward will help you go.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's very important to be kind to ourselves as we reevaluate. And I love your suggestion about thinking about it as if it's a friend's goals that you're thinking about. So that's amazing. Um, and if you listeners, if you would like more information on SMART goals, Carrie actually presented 3 webinars on the SMART Goal system, and those are all available on our website, bluecirclehealth.org/events, and on our YouTube channel as well. So if this was not enough for you and you would like some more, we've got plenty more for you. Um, Carrie, one thing that I like to ask every guest that comes on the show, even after all these years you've lived with diabetes, what is one thing that still surprises you about T1D?
That's a good question. I think it's the resiliency. Just resiliency. One of the body, like we have an organ that is not working to the best of its ability, which for many organs doesn't go well. But the body keeps going, even with a little bit of outside health or a little bit of outside help. And then the people are very resilient. Like we are working to replace an entire hormone that our body is not doing on top of living a full life. And we continue to go and we adapt And just that resiliency, both the body lets us function, and then our brain lets us to continue on forward. Always amazes me.
That's amazing. You're right. I hadn't thought about that. Thank you. Well, Carrie, thank you again so much for talking with us today, teaching us SMART goals. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Hi everyone, it's Len from Blue Circle Health. We're now helping folks in 20 states plus the District of Columbia. So if you or someone you know could use a hand with their type 1 diabetes, go to the website, look at all the states that we're operating in, with more to follow. Have a great holiday, everybody.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone you would love to see really nail their New Year's resolutions this time around. And then be sure to tune in for our next episode where we're talking with a special guest about how type 1 diabetes takes so much and how the system gives so little. I hope you'll join us. Until then, keep living well with T1D.